March 2025 has now passed. We got some unique matchups to talk about. Death Battlecast has some special guests show up, and Fan Battlecast talked about two of my most wanted matchups. Generally, this is going to be a really positive video, so let's get right into it, starting with the Death Battlecast side. We have number 4, Bakugo vs Rexplode. These are two hot-headed characters whose main form of attack is explosions. Both characters being kind of dicks in the beginning of their stories, before mellowing out as their stories went on. Bakugo has so many matchups, but is this one the best one? Liam repped Bakugo and Chad repped Rex. They both can create explosions, but they both do so very differently. Bakugo sweats nitroglycerin that he can ignite to create explosions, fly through the air at explosive speeds, can blind you with a technique called Stun Grenade, release a bunch of explosions to create a huge area of effect called the Cluster Bomb, and can even shoot machine guns that are tied to the gauntlets in his arms for some extra range. The only other thing that Liam brought up was the Howitzer Impact, where Bakugo spins around to create a tornado that will generate oxygen. Bakugo will then use the oxygen buildup to hit you with great force. Rex's way of blowing things up is more limited. Rex makes objects explode by charging up non-organic objects with kinetic energy. The bigger the object, the bigger the kaboom. Rex's body is robotically enhanced, so he is faster, stronger, and more durable than most people. Although I don't think he compares to Bakugo's stats at all. He can launch himself into the air using his explosives, and has a small yet destructive explosive that he can shoot out of his robotic hand. He isn't a pushover in the slightest. But let's be real, Bakugo wins this in most situations, I believe. He's way faster and should be way stronger. Now, Rexplode could blow himself up by using the calcium in his bones as a catalyst. Good on you, Chad, for thinking about that. And this would kill Bakugo and create a tie. But more likely than not, Bakugo would just outspeed and put Rex out of commission before that happens. It's an interesting matchup, but I'm not sure it's the one for Bakugo. I wouldn't mind seeing it overall, though. Tied with this matchup idea is Bakugo vs Raphael. These two are heroes that are always a step behind the main hero of their respective groups. They suffer an inferiority complex because of this and constantly lash out in anger before slowly gaining a respect and admiration for the one that caused this inadequacy. This is so interesting in terms of connections, but the same can't be said for the debate. There isn't much to add here. Legitimately, the only thing that they brought up that Raphael could do is turn into a dragon. I don't know what I can do with that. They also just say flat out that Raphael is fucked. So yeah, I'd rank it the same with the last one, but I have no idea how this matchup would go. Number 3. ObiWan vs Gandalf. They are both wise mentor characters who are not afraid to make sacrifices for the greater good, both dying in their stories and coming back from that death to give more wisdom and lend the current heroes their powers. Honestly, there isn't much of a debate to discuss. Kino repped ObiWan and Speedy repped Gandalf. Speedy was the one who pitched this matchup, which is why I find it so surprising that he spent the entire debate making it sound bad. Hell, when I saw this matchup, I was like, actually, that sounds awesome, before Speedy tried to make it look like the biggest stomp in history. Kino didn't even need to be here. This was the Speedy show since he argued pretty much for both sides. Obi-Wan should have had his name changed to Obi-Fucked. But let's get into the debate. Most of this debate was trying to set Gandalf up as being more powerful than Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan compared to someone who moved moons with the Force? Well, Gandalf can compare to Sauron. He's stronger than Saruman, and could even compare to the people who created and moved the sun and the moon. Obi-Wan could affect a black hole potentially, but I'd need to see the size of the black hole to know if it's a more impressive feat. Obviously, Obi-Wan has a lightsaber, but Gandalf can match that with his sword, which channels electricity that, according to Speedy, should be hotter than a lightsaber. At least we could get a cool sword fight here. Gandalf should be more experienced, being 50,000 years old as well as being one of the angelic Maya that sung the universe into existence. Although everyone agrees that this is less impressive as it seems. Depending on how you interpret magic, it's possible that Obi-Wan's defensive style could help him a lot here. If Obi-Wan could block Gandalf's magic with the lightsaber or the Force, then that does make this fight much closer. Speedy brings up how Gandalf can transmute Obi-Wan, but I don't think that's an overall win con, since I believe Obi-Wan's Force shield could block it. Obi-Wan has the Force to crush limbs, throw objects, or pinpoint weaknesses of the opponents. But Gandalf has fire and light magic, has his own telekinesis, and could potentially depower Obi-Wan. But I think that last one might be a stretch. What decided the winner for me was the resurrection. Obi-Wan could come back as a Force ghost, being able to still fight and use the Force in this form. Gandalf can just straight come back to life, with almost no negative repercussions. If Obi-Wan comes back as a Force ghost, Gandalf can banish him to the afterlife, which he might not be able to come back from. Now, I have to give a round of applause to Ben. He contested so much of Speedy's Gandalf arguments to make this fight seem a lot closer, and I really appreciated that. When you pitch your idea, you want it to at least sound closer than it actually is, because there's a lot of people in the community that just can't get behind a stomp matchup, with a few exceptions of course. I do think Gandalf wins this, but Speedy at the end of the cast says Obi-Wan does. I'm not sure what to believe. I'm not familiar with either series, so there's a lot of missing information. information. But with the way this fight was presented here, I'm just not interested. Number 2. Charizard vs. Rathalos. They are both the fire-based, almost mascot creatures for both Pokemon and Monster Hunter. They both can be quite aggressive when it comes to other creatures or people, and although both are called dragons constantly, neither are dragons in the slightest. I've never heard of this matchup before, but I can see why it's wanted. In a strange way, I feel like it kinda just makes sense. This debate spends a lot of time talking about how they should approach this matchup, and I really like this format. It's less about the debate itself directly, and more about the different ways they can interpret this matchup. Both Charizard and Rathalos have quite a few variants they could choose from. Could they use a Pokemon trainer? Should they use a wild Charizard? Should it Mega Evolve? What about Ratha? They can use Rathian. How do the different versions of Rathalos work? All these questions were asked and we got pretty satisfying answers. John represented Rathalos and Jacob represented Charizard. Let's start with talking about a debate between a wild Rathalos versus a wild Charizard. They can both fly and shoot fire, of course, but they do have quite a few differences. Charizard has the Blaze ability, which makes him stronger the more he takes damage or starts getting put on the back foot. He can cause the burn effect, although I believe Rathalos would be immune to it, or at the very least highly resistant to it. Getting inflicted with burn would reduce the enemy's physical attack, making Rathalos weaker. Charizard has a guaranteed burn move called Inferno, so as long as Rathalos can't outright resist the burn, it will definitely become a factor in this fight. Charizard also has other status affecting moves, like Dragon Breath, which will paralyze foes, Growl, which will lower physical attack, Scary Face can lower speed, and Smokescreen will lower accuracy. Charizard could also have Gigantamax or Terrestrialization, but I don't know if I'd give a wild Charizard that personally. Rathalos does have a few things that I think are important. I thought this was a Charizard stomp at first, but honestly there's a really fun dynamic here. Rathalos has Poison Claws that will temporarily poison foes, has an ability called Fire Blight which can negate passive recovery, can bypass burn resistance, and can even decrease his enemy's maximum health. Rathalos also has fought Big Boss, but I'm not sure it would increase his scaling at all. Both John and Jacob scaled both these characters at similar levels, so I think stats even out. They also brought up that they could use Res Charizard versus Ratha from Monster Hunter Stories. All Charizard gets is way higher scaling. While Ratha also gets higher scaling, it's not to the extent of Charizard. But Ratha is immune to all status effects and debuffs, and is only weak to lightning. They both can fly high in the sky, but Ratha now has a move called Sky High Dive that deals 999 damage. I'd rather use the wild versions of these creatures, but either way Charizard wins. Charizard has way too many ways to debuff his opponent, is a much smaller target, and could most likely match or overpower Rathalos. Even John folded in this debate. He admitted that Rathalos loses even before they close the polls. That's how one-sided he saw this. I think this matchup is fun, and closer than what they think. And honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing this on the show. This was a good way to start off the month of March. And number 1, Mega Man X versus Optimus Primal. These two are the successors to both Mega Man and Optimus Prime. They were both living more simple lives before being forced to fight in a war that determined the fate of their own kind. Even though they didn't want to fight in the first place, they both sacrificed their lives to save everyone they love. There's a lot more little connections than what people may think, and I think it's honestly a really cool matchup. Wow, I can't believe they have Ian Flynn here for this. I'm not really the biggest fan of his stories, but he seems to be really passionate about finally writing his own story, instead of writing stories for licensed characters. So I'm actually going to give that a try once it releases. It's also nice to see Ben and Chad debating for real again. It feels like it's been a while since the OGs competed against each other to see who comes out on top. Ben represented Optimus Primal and Chad represented Mega Man X. We find out immediately that Optimus Primal is a bit hard to talk about, seeing as there is a lot of timelines that exist for Beast Wars, but Ben says that every version of Optimus Primal are connected in a way, so it'd be okay to composite them. I'm fine with this logic. Both Primal and X have an arm cannon, but X's cannon does seem to be better. Chad doesn't bring up many weapons that X can equip to his arm cannon besides a black hole, but that's already pretty powerful in and of itself. Optimus Primal's arm cannon can be scaled to, I shit you not, a fart that Rhinox lets out, which I believe scaled to planetary, while X is at solar system level. Well, that's okay. It's not a total washout for Primal, seeing as his successor was able to fight his way out of a black hole, meaning that if they are truly comparable, Primal and X's speed wouldn't be too far off. Well, depending on the sizes of the black holes that each of them escape from, that is. They could clash blades, with X having access to Zero's Z-Saber and Optimus Primal having dual blades of his own, as well as a giant mace. Ben brings up multiple armors that Primal has, but fails to mention how they would affect scaling or what Primal would gain. But Chad neglected to bring up any of X's upgraded armor, so it's alright. Primal just doesn't seem to stack up in the arsenal department. He has missiles he can fire from his back and a jetpack, but X has multiple shields to block and reflect attacks, has the Hadouken and Shoryuken which can instantly kill enemies, has multiple items to heal himself passively or instantly, can store and release a massive fuck-off attack, and most importantly has Mother Elf, who does so many things. She can rewrite all of cyberspace, recharge weapon energy, erase the existence of robots, buff his stats, absorb projectiles, stun enemies, slow down time, time, and can have a target's endurance and durability. Primal has no way around any of that. Sure, X's normal arsenal can be absorbed with his energy receptors and fired back at X, but X is just far more powerful. It is true that Antagony was able to survive a blast that could wipe out 2 solar systems, and Primal should scale to her, but I don't think Primal can dish out that kind of damage, especially since X surviving the gravity well is a far more impressive feat than the fart that Primal should scale to. I think if you took away Mother Elf, this is a far more debatable matchup, but as it stands, I'm pretty sure X wins this. He outsmarts Primal in a lot of categories, and even if you equalize their speed, X could just stop time and land a killing blow first. Primal has the Energon Matrix and Matrix of Purification to transform and protect himself from healing or corruption, but neither of those would save him from Mother Elf. I really like this matchup though. It makes so much sense and the animation potential could be so fun. I still think X vs Cosmos is a good alt though. Now let's get to the fan battle cast, baby. Number 8. Hulk vs. Asura. They both get stronger as they get more angry. I'm pretty sure that's it. But they do debate this rather interestingly, so I want to jump right into that. I love how unique this is. They didn't have a picture to give guidance on how they envision this fight, so Sherm decided the best way to go about it was to compare a bunch of different Hulks to Asura, just to see which one stacked up the best. Archive talked about Asura, but this cast was mostly about the Hulk. Normally I would have a problem with that, but we just had a death battle with Asura in it, and I'm pretty sure it's still fresh in people's minds. The Hulk has never had his separate iterations exclusively discussed on the show, so that really is the most interesting part of this debate. I'll be talking about everything brought up for Asura, and then I will rank every single Hulk on how much I'd like to see that iteration fight Asura. Let's begin. Asura is a master of martial arts who has been fighting for tens of thousands of years. He is about 91,000 times faster than the Big Bang, although Archive argues that he could be way faster. Asura most likely gets stronger faster than any form of the Hulk. He was able to defeat Chakravartin, who Archive says should have 5D scaling. Asura can fly, was able to break out of Naraka, which is said to be an infinite dimension, can kinda regenerate but it's not too great, and can summon a giant fiery mantra arm to attack foes. With all of that out of the way, let's start with our Hulk rankings. Number 4. Space Punisher Hulk. This Hulk can scale to the Watchers and Galactus and has 12 arms. That's all that really matters about this form. Even without knowing exact numbers, I can tell you that Space Hulk absolutely fucks up Asura. This is my least favorite because if you're going to have Asura lose to any version of the Hulk, have it be one that's more memorable and has more presence. Number 3. The current Hulk run. This Hulk also scales way too high, essentially being the strongest being in Marvel's current comic canon. He can fight beings that exist on way higher dimensions, and scales to one above all and the one below all, which essentially makes Asura a sad ant under Hulk's foot. Number 2. MCU Hulk. Now, I really don't like how the MCU Hulk was handled in this conversation here. They make really good points about Gore the God Butcher being able to kill Celestials, and Thor is able to fight Gore, and Hulk is able to fight Thor, meaning this Hulk should be strong enough to overpower the energy of a Big Bang since Celestials can survive that. It's the part where they bring up the Infinity Stones that I don't like. Versus debaters really like to bring up equipment that the characters just don't use. The Hulk has never actually used the Infinity Stones. It in fact almost killed him to even attempt it, so there's no reason to give him this in this debate. I would have considered the What If Hulk as a different character. The Hulk in that series absorbed so much radiation that he turned into a giant kaiju. This kaiju can create an army of kaiju Hulk to fight Asura. This would be cool seeing Asura fight this giant monster to protect his world. It makes a lot of sense. The Hulk in this iteration just is nowhere near as powerful. Hulk is as strong as a Big Bang. Asura is as strong as 91,000 Big Bangs. It's not hard to see who would win here. I believe it's either in this section or the Space Hulk section where Archive brings up other Capcom universes in DMC scaling. If another character wins because of a crossover, I'd say that's lame as shit. So I'm just gonna move on to number 1, Savage Hulk. Savage Hulk is the closest fight. You can argue that they both have similar speeds and similar strengths. This Hulk was able to destroy an entire infinite dimension, fought someone who controlled all the metal in the universe and another person who controlled all the energy in the universe, and clashed punches with Thor, who was on par with Heracles at the time. This Hulk can apparently fly, and could potentially have access to the Green Door, giving him greater regeneration. These two are even in a lot of categories, but I still think the Hulk wins this based on his regeneration and because I think he's just a tad bit stronger. It was a really nice podcast though. I hope they do more like this in the future. But sure, my man, Asura can't fly? Really? Kratos vs. Asura just came out. Do better, man. Number 7. Orex vs. Null. Both are ancient evil aliens who desire the destruction of everything. They both created their own species of servants to act as their army, and both are related to darkness and death. I'm sure there are more connections, but I don't personally know these characters, so I don't know what those could be. Now this one is a bit complicated, and there was a lot on the Destiny side that I couldn't quite comprehend, but I'm going to try my best to understand these arguments. Wraith represented Orex and Sol represented Null. Let's start with stats because they started with SP. They both are around immeasurable speeds. But Orex I think has the advantage with his Blink ability. It's essentially the instant transmission from Dragon Ball. For AP, Orex is set from Infinite D to Outer Versal, and Null is anywhere from Multi to Outer Versal. They are probably really close in strength as well, which is actually super exciting. Although I'm sure Null probably edges out in strength. These two actually seem comparable, but it's gonna fall apart when we get to their weapons, right? I mean, Marvel's side probably takes this category. Null has the Necro Sword, a sword that can negate immortality, power up his soldiers, absorb souls, corrupt your soul just by even slightly getting grazed by the sword. It can create creatures called Black Berserkers, monsters that can fight Thor for hours. He can create Necro Ravens, a group of ravens that can swarm and attack you, with the ravens even being able to form together into one giant powerful raven. The sword itself can transform into clothes, armor, wings, extra limbs. It can grow to the size of a planet and even assimilate stars in black holes. It can drain light, engulf a person in darkness, and nearly consume the entire Marvel universe. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's just not fair, especially for Orex. I mean, what does he have? He has the Willbreaker sword, which is a sword that gets stronger every time it kills an opponent. That's cool and all, but Null has a symbiote armor, which grants him major defense. I mean, the Willbreaker might be able to cut quarks. Wait, what? It doesn't need to hit a person to harm them? And can kill immortals and harm foes that are intangible? Hold on, this is super interesting. Null can contend by being able to butcher people on the molecular level and harm concepts, but Orex can also harm concepts. In fact, Orex controls concepts of his own. In Destiny, the words of these runes are the powers themselves. With these runes, Orex can subjugate foes, lock people in prisons they can't escape from, and even cut into another dimension. With all of that, you'd think Orex would take the advantage, but Null has the God Bomb, which can destroy, and I quote this from Sol, everything. I think Null takes AP and weapons, while Orex takes speed. Null can regenerate to the extent where to kill Null, the person he's fighting would have to destroy the entire realm they are fighting in. But what if he was forced into a realm where someone else made up the rules? Orex has a ship called the Dreadnought, and this ship can throw out throne worlds. Throne worlds are essentially alternate realities where Orex can try to subjugate you, where he controls the rules that apply to reality. Null would have a hard time contending with that, but Null, if he got close enough, would still be able to corrupt Orex, remove his memories, or even throw Orex into another dimension, even though we know Orex could come back from that. But if Null were to try to get close to Orex, Orex can do something called taking. With just a touch, Orex can rip someone out of reality, put them inside of another reality, and change almost every single other aspect about themselves. That's nuts. But Null has multiple types of corruption, like corrupting others into a symbiote. He can create other Nulls by granting powers to other symbiotes. He can raise the dead. He can read your memories. He can read your memories if you touch pieces of a symbiote, while also having a resistance to someone else reading his mind, knocking out anyone who tries to invade him mentally. He also isn't weak to both fire and sound like the other symbiotes. He can create and summon symbiotes, see and hear through other symbiotes, create symbiotes using shadows. He's even so in sync with all of the other symbiotes that he sealed the entire planet. He can bind symbiotes to other people and control them, and him and his entire symbiote army will adapt to their bodies during the fight to gain the upper hand. Lastly, Null can see the future, but would that help him from invisibility? You can't see something that isn't there. Not to mention that Orex has multiple ways to avoid getting hit by Null's army. Teleportation, an invincibility shield, binding his enemies, and even keep them at bay with his sword logic. Orex's sword logic can grant him darkness powers. He can erase beings from existence, blast dark energy, shoot fire from his mouth, and create mini pocket dimensions. The winner, I believe, is Null, and it honestly comes down to their armies. Orex has plenty of heavy hitters. He has soldiers called the Taken who can use every single Taken ability, meaning they could convert Orex's army with a touch and they could predict anything that isn't above causality. The only reason I say that Null is better here is because his symbiote corruption has better range, and he can completely take over a person's body with his symbiote. Orex has units called the Hive. They are comprised of wizards, knights, thrall, and ogres. They shoot fire, shoot rockets that send the other person to a different reality, teleport, transmute, and can tear out souls. Again, the symbiote army would quickly overwhelm these units and add to their numbers throughout the fight. Orex has the Death Singers who can kill you by singing, but Null having resistance to sound could negate this effect. We have the Taken Raven, which can claw up moons and wrap their wings around entire planets. But the symbiotes can spread their influence over planets as well, so they can easily take the bird. We have Riven, a magic dragon that can grant wishes, shapeshift, shoot fire, and has knowledge of our own reality. The only ability that helps it here would be granting wishes, but Polaris says that these wishes are often double-edged swords, so I'm not sure how helpful it would be. Null has answers to all of these units just with his symbiotes. And those aren't even all of his units, like the Sentry, who are strong enough to fight the Silver Surfer. If this were a one-on-one fight, I think Orex could take this, but with their armies, Null more likely than not will overwhelm Orex, convert his troops with the symbiote, and generally would be the first to land a killing blow. This debate did do something that's never been done before though, and that's make me care about a Destiny matchup. I'd be fine with this one happening, and I'm excited to learn more about the series in the coming months. Number 6. Achi vs Oberon Vortigern. These two are party members that end up betraying the main heroes. They care about their rivals even though they say they don't. They both help the heroes after experiencing their own deaths, and they both have connections to English folklore. This is a really fun idea, and we really need fate on the show, so let's see this one happen. Achi is rep by Dark Lore Master, or as I call him, the GOAT, and I am the table repped Oberon, and he is the person who pitched this matchup, so I'm not familiar with either character very well. I know a bit about Achi, but I never finished Persona 5, so the most I know about him is the general twist at the end. And I've seen a few Fate shows, but Oberon doesn't appear in any of them, so I don't know his character either. I was very excited to learn more though. Achi is a wildcard user. What that means is that he can recruit and obtain different types of personas, while typical Persona users only get one. Achi never actually recruits personas to his side in the story, but canonically he has had 2 different personas, so it's still viable. Dark Lore states that Oberon is a being similar to a persona, so it's possible that Achi could recruit him. Well no, I doubt that could happen. But this means that Dark Lore gets the funniest argument of the month award. One of the most interesting points is that this fight would take place in the metaverse. Perception is reality here, so the more known and revered your reputation is, the stronger you can become. What's interesting here is that this helps Oberon in this fight, seeing as his entire existence in Fate is based on his historically grand reputation, meaning that he could be even stronger in this fight than he's ever been. In fact, this whole fight hinges around them being even in a lot of ways. They both have similar speeds and strengths, even though Achi has items that could buff himself to give him the edge. They both have ways to mess with each other's psyche, Achi being able to drive people psychotic with his persona Loki, and Oberon being able to not only see through lies and deception, but he can use his anti-human order ability, which would force the enemy to start giving into their evil ways. Achi has curse and holy magic, even having abilities to instantly kill Oberon, but Oberon is immune to curse magic and resists instant death moves. Achi has a laser sword and a laser gun when his persona doesn't cut it, but Oberon could defend himself by summoning an insect army to help him in combat. Oberon can summon pill bugs the size of horses or bees that are the size of birds. Even if Achi did get close, Oberon can make weapons from his insects like a spear made out of a cheetar, and he also has a sword from Muramasa, so he definitely wouldn't be defenseless. Achi has the uncanny ability to defy fate. He is not bound by fated events, but Oberon has something a bit different that could contend with this. Oberon has EX rank luck, which warps reality to aid the user. This luck rank has saved the world on 3 separate occasions based on coincidences, so I think it could be a major factor in this fight. Saber was even able to survive an instant kill move because of her luck, and her luck rank was way weaker. Oberon could turn himself into a spirit to avoid getting hit, but Achi can hit things in other dimensions and intangible objects, so this wouldn't help. Oberon is immune to mental debuffs like sleep, paralysis, or skill seal, but Achi has items to remove resistances. Achi can create different physical and magical barriers, but Oberon can ignore defense and invincibility while also being able to make himself invincible and has a move where he can auto-evade 3 attacks. Suffice to say, I love the back and forth in this debate. There's so many factors to think about, but who do I think wins? I think Oberon wins this, and that is because of his eye like Vortigern. This is a giant Bugnado void creature that will suck you into its maw where you can't escape. There is no way to leave this area. This also inflicts eternal sleep on an enemy. Now Dark Lore states that with the LeBlanc charm and the P3 Pro Dex being able to resist the Dark Hour, he should be able to bypass eternal sleep. But Table says that eternal sleep bypasses resistances, so it would still work. Also, the Dark Hour argument is kind of stupid. The characters resist transmutation and sleep manipulation by resisting the Dark Hour, but they can still be transmuted and put to sleep in fights, so they obviously aren't immune. Well, other than boss type characters in P5 that is. Achi could become a boss by using his psychotic spells on himself and driving himself mad, but that still wouldn't save him from the void. Dark Lore says that he can teleport outside of the metaverse in the anime, but I'm not sure you would give him anime only abilities. And the Omnipotent Orb doesn't do anything that could break him out of the void either. It can make the user resist all damage except Almighty, but he's not necessarily getting damaged by this attack. The orb can erase beings from existence, but servants can actively resist existent erasure, although I will say I'm not sure if the void itself could get erased. I think this is a close as hell fight, even with the Omnipotent Snorb, but more often than not, I think Oberon will avoid death and obtain victory. Number 5. Kazuma Yoshizawa versus Hibiki Tachibana. Both of these people had someone sacrifice themselves to save them. Both have fought against crazy people who wanted to rewrite reality, and both of their names have a flower theme. This matchup is cool, and not a lot of people know of Symphogear, so let's show everyone why this matchup is so cool. I hope everyone will learn something about Symphogears today, because even though I know what it is, I was so excited to learn more. Too bad she's up against a Persona character. Whenever I see a Persona matchup, I'm like, wow, that's so cool, and then you have to talk about the Omnipotent Orb and you start having me fall asleep. Honestly though, when Kagurabachi brought it up at the end of the cast, I was like, it was fun while it lasted. I'm going to ignore that the Sleepy Time Orb even exists and get right into the debate. Kagurabachi rep Kazumi Yoshizawa, or as he so desperately wanted to call her, Violet. He said he was going to call her Violet at the very beginning of the cast and just failed to every single time he mentioned her name. I'm not gonna lie, I found it very amusing. And Strange Fate repped Hibiki. This matchup is pretty straightforward, so this might be a quick one. Hibiki is a magical girl who transforms with music, hence the symphony part of Symphogears. Her main ability is punching really good. You might say she punches the best. She has something called Gungnir, which powers up her punches with rockets and pistons. She can punch someone so hard that it creates giant blasts that can be seen from outer space. Two really fast rapid punches that remind you that yes, this is still anime. Violet fights with a gun, a rapier, and most importantly, her persona, Ella. Ella is a Faith Arcana persona, meaning she wields light magic, or bless magic in Persona's case. Kagurabachi keeps it simple. She has bless type attacks, she has some physical attacks, and has a really good healing spell. Her healing could fully recover her health and even regrow limbs. Hibiki also has some healing, being also able to regrow limbs with her Berserker form. Strange Fate questions whether she can use this form here, but I think it's fair game. Plus, Hibiki needs to be under intense emotion to use it. What's more intense than a fight to the death? Anyways, Hibiki can also fly, giving her a pretty good movement option over Violet. Too bad Violet has the versatility advantage with all of her powers. She can use Passive, which halves the hit rate of all attacks, Bless Amp, which makes her Bless type attacks stronger, Brave Step, which increases physical damage, and Violet can cause status effects like Dizzy, which would daze Hibiki for a moment. There's a question of if Hibiki can see and break Violet's persona, but Strange Fate mentions that Hibiki can fight and defend the noise, which are also beings that can't be harmed normally, so it should still be viable for Hibiki to break Ella. If her persona breaks, all it does is make the user feel extremely exhausted for a moment, before the persona then reappears to fight again, so it's not too big of an advantage. Lastly, Hibiki can create shields, energy blasts with her hands, create two large energy fists, and punch someone in multiple dimensions all at once, which is an insane level of power. But overall, there's just one big problem with this debate. The scaling is way too one-sided. Violet is light years faster, and their strength isn't much better. Hibiki is at planetary, and Kasumi is at multiversal. Even if Hibiki used Superb Song, which is a last resort attack that summons a large blast of energy but nearly kills the user, all she would do is get herself killed and barely damage Violet. Hibiki has no hacks to get past the stat gap, which is really unfortunate because I really wanted to see Symphogears in its best light. I still like this matchup because I don't care about debate when forming an opinion, but I'm afraid that people might get turned off from a series they don't know if the debate isn't close. To the pitcher, fight hard for this matchup. I want to see Symphogear on the show, and I want to see the smile on your face when it gets announced. Same to all you pitchers out there. Send all of these guys some love and push hard for their sakes. Number 4. Cell versus Diaboron. These two are bug-like creatures that gain powers the more they absorb different things. Cell absorbing organic material and Diaboron absorbing data. These two start off by being terrifying mysterious anomalies before becoming powerful forces of nature. I myself rep Diaboron in this cast, so I wanted to find someone else to cover how he debated and criticized me on areas where I was weak. And who better to do that than the person I respect the most in this community? Saul, let me have it, man.
Hey guys, Saul here. I'm here to review this next cast, Perfect Cell vs Diaboron. I have no idea about this matchup, generally lacking Dragon Ball knowledge and having no knowledge of Digimon, which makes me the perfect guy to review this, right? Well, Sherm represents Perfect Cell and Prime represents Diaboron. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't enjoy this cast overall. Not to say that both did a bad job, no. Sherm clearly has knowledge, heart and passion of Dragon Ball, which you can see in his other casts, and Prime definitely knows his Digimon. I just have an issue with how the content is presented. It feels way skewered to the Digimon side. Of course this is only natural, but I felt like I learned nothing about Perfect Cell beyond him being like a composite Dragon Ball character, which I feel like kills the idea in itself to me. With some really weird arguments for the debate, such as him going back and killing himself multiple times over with like instant transmission. There was an entire half an hour at the start dedicated to explaining certain things about Digimon that felt irrelevant to the debate, such as him being able to launch nukes. Then we get into the 60 seconds, and then we jump into even more about Digimon. As for the actual debate itself, I felt like it was almost over right away. They bring up speed, where Cell has a numerical value and Diaboron has infinite speed. Cell can affect a solar system, Diaboron can at least affect a universe. And this is without cosmology, which they said would kill the debate even more. But it didn't matter what Sherm brought up at that point, because Diaboron had the speed and the strength advantage, so he could just one-shot Perfect Cell. Yeah, that's just kind of my overall thoughts on the cast. I hope that nothing controversial ever happens with Cell, you know?
This is now my preferred matchup for Cell. I never liked his other opponents, but this one can provide something that the others can't. A natural escalation where every single form of both characters can be shown. Even though I think I debated kinda poorly, it was my first debate, and I'll only get better from here. Number 3, Garland versus Orstead. These two were once the strongest knights in their kingdoms. They both venture forth to destroy the evil entities plaguing their kingdoms and saving the princesses that they had feelings for. But after differing events where the princesses didn't return their affections, they became more jaded and ostracized, giving into the darker parts of their psyche and causing a time-traveling event to take place. I love this matchup so much. Live-A-Live is amazing, and I hope after this debate, more people will know why. Garland is rep by Wagonworks and Orstead is rep by Riddles. This debate was really fun and I feel like they encapsulated this fight perfectly. These two combatants are both master swordsmen. Garland has a giant claymore that he drags on the ground behind him. This claymore can turn into an axe, segmented blades, twin swords, and a flail, so he has a lot of options for close-range combat. Orstead also has a sizable sword and he can create energy blades. Nowhere near as impressive as Garland, but their skills should even out any advantages that Garland's transforming sword would bring. Here's where we get into the meat of things. Their abilities. Garland is tied to Chaos and Orstead is tied to Odeon. That itself brings this matchup to a much higher scale. Garland can wield dark magic, heal himself, use Thundaga, Earthquake, Blaze, Cyclone, Flare, you know, all of those fun abilities. Orstead's abilities are a bit different. He can manipulate someone's hatred. He gets more powerful the more hatred exists within the world. He can fly, drain health, manipulate individual souls, although I doubt this would work on Garland. And Orstead also has his own version of dark magic. They both have abilities to alter time. Garland can travel through time and Orstead can yank people through time. At first I thought this wouldn't help either combatant in this fight, but then something dawned on me. So Garland has these massively powerful beasts called the Four Fiends. These beasts are created by Garland's hatred fusing with the elements of the world. Don't ask why, it's Final Fantasy. If Garland fuses with these beasts, he becomes Chaos. Odio is the evil spirit within Orstead. He has many incarnations all throughout time. These incarnations take different forms, but they are all still Odio. It's possible that Orstead could send the four beasts through time to fight Odio's other incarnations, while leaving Garland to try and fight Orstead on his own and preventing him from fusing with the beasts entirely. Garland can travel through time, but Orstead could probably just pluck him back. Even if he couldn't, Garland wouldn't know where in time Orstead sent them to, so it wouldn't help him much. Garland does have more options of combat when fighting one-on-one though. He can create barriers, has counters, and can increase his damage to humanoid objects. That, along with his magic, should give him the edge in a one-on-one fight, especially since Garland should be much stronger, while Orstead should be faster, although I'm not sure by how much. His speed wouldn't do much though, since Garland can cast magic that will have a massive AoE effect. Plus, Garland has an ability called Primordial Crust, which kills the target if their HP isn't restored to a specific point. Orstead would have no way of knowing how to avoid the effects for that technique. With all of that, Garland must win, right? Well, no. Orstead has an attack called Armageddon, where he nukes an entire timeline, something Garland can't contend with. Wagonworks says that there is context to this attack, and that's that Orstead can't use this attack because he needs Orstead to use this attack. Okay, I'm just kidding. The actual point was that Odio's other incarnations were being piloted by Orstead when they used Armageddon, but that wouldn't really matter. Orstead can still use it himself. There's story reasons why he doesn't use Armageddon immediately, but he can still just do it whenever he wants, especially if he is losing a fight. They debate on whether Orstead survives Armageddon or not, but I think the quote at the end of the game most likely reveals that he does survive. I do love this matchup and I know these characters pretty well, and I think both of these debaters did them justice. This matchup is awesome, one of my most wanted, and I will continue to support it until it eventually happens. Number 2, Travis Touchdown versus Jack Kamen. These two are known as the edgy M-rated characters from the Wii era of consoles. These guys are big assholes who can do much more than just talk the talk. Much like Diaboron versus Cell, I was in the cast repping Jack Kamen, so instead of me talking about my own debate again, I have someone to discuss this podcast for me, the owner of Fan Battlecast himself, Santi Sherm. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hey everybody, it's your boy, Santi Sherm, that one guy from the Fan Battle cast thing. The Travis vs. Jack cast was interesting, as instead of a traditional format, the pitcher requested we go for a deep dive, since the debate isn't really the appeal for this one. So I have to judge this one a little differently. In terms of just making the characters sound cool as hell, this cast did a great job. They showed off their various weapons, the wild and wacky bosses they fight, the disturbing creativity of the violence of the franchises, and how they could play off of each other very well. The cast was very good at selling the tone and vibe of this fight overall. It has me sold on the fight being the best for both. It just seems aesthetically perfect, and Berserker's passion for it definitely came through on this one. While the cast was overall very good, and accomplished its goal, if I had to give some criticism, I would say that they focused on the style to the detriment of the substance. They didn't really touch on other aspects of the matchup that I think would be interesting, like the thematics or the personality clash, which I hear are actually pretty compelling. Something about the point of violence or something, I don't know, I haven't played them. Anyway, this was a great cast, we need more dogs next time though.
Thank you, Santi. For my final thoughts, I really like this matchup. It's a stomp, but the style of this fight could be immaculate. A fight switching between monochromatic and bright, vibrant coloring is a hook that no other potential death battle can provide. It's an excellent idea that death battle needs to do someday. Like Next Berserker said, it's his Cole versus Alex. And as someone who backed Cole versus Alex for a very long time, I know how it feels to wait and want this matchup. Even though I got what I wanted, and we got Cole versus Alex, I want to fight and give Next Berserker what he wants. And this fight, again, even though it's a stomp, would be a unique fight that no other death battle could possibly give us. And number 1, Henry Stickmin versus the Second Coming. They are both stick figure characters from the early 2000s that had their start on Newgrounds. Both use weapons from other franchises to fight, and both are quite busted. I mean, come on. This matchup makes so much sense that it hurts. Now this debate is fun. Now I will say that they technically did 2 casts on this. The first one had so many technical difficulties that they just had to stop and restart. I couldn't really understand a lot of the arguments made in the first cast, so I'm going to throw any points that I could hear out and just stick to the second video where they debated it more properly. In any case though, Saul repped the Second Coming and Dark Lore Master repped Henry Stickmin. Now I came into this podcast with some knowledge on this debate because I've looked into this myself. I love this matchup so much, but I figured that the Second Coming would have a massive advantage against Henry for multiple reasons that Saul brings up. Just for basic equipment, Henry Stickmin has a bug that makes things like CPUs and electronics crash, a stand called Tribute that can punch hard, swap places with Henry, and even punch someone across timelines. It's important to note that Henry Stickmin does have multiple abilities across different timelines, like how he can both have the Top Hat crew as backup or the government depending on the route you play. They composite Henry though, so he has absolutely everything he could have. Henry has abilities where he can duplicate himself, become invulnerable, go through objects, has a fighting game combo that will never end, and has the distraction dance, which will force anyone who sees him dancing to dance as well. Although Henry can't stop dancing himself and will eventually cause the mission to fail. Henry can always restart and try another method in that fight, however. The restart screen is canon to Henry Stickmin. He can actively keep resetting and coming back. The Second Coming wouldn't give Henry a chance to try many things though. Saul claims that he is infinitely faster and infinitely stronger than Henry. Even with scaling to Among Us and Vampire Survivors, which I hate, Henry is stat stomped in every metric. He even loses out when it comes to the equipment as well. The Second Coming can teleport, has every single weapon from Minecraft, League of Legends, and even Mario. He can use all of the Adobe tools, a flash pen that could let him create hammers, barriers, guns, sharks, etc. No one else could use this pen, so Henry couldn't take it and use it for himself. Not like he needs it since he has his own pen to create objects, even though those objects can end up harming him at the end of the day. One of the main things the Second Coming has is a staff that he can put different Minecraft items in and create different weapons. He can shoot lava, create clubs, shoot lasers, but most importantly, by inserting the Minecraft icon itself, it created a black hole that destroyed the entire Minecraft cosmology, which is so insane. The main point against Henry is skill. The Second Coming is going to run circles around Henry. But what's going to happen when Henry just keeps retrying over and over? I mean, Henry has things like bug juice that can turn people into bugs. He can divide by zero and crash all of reality. Can use an item to lag the Second Coming's movements. Has something called Shoop the Whoop that will send down a sky laser after 7 business days. Well, that kind of sucks, but he does have another laser in the sky that he can use whenever he wants. He even has a way to contend with the Pokemon Pokemon that Henry Stickmin will send out. Sure, Henry's Pokemon will crash the game and cause a reset, but it would stop the Second Coming from being able to use that part of his arsenal. Second Coming still wins this pretty handedly though. He has eye lasers, can heal himself, and can summon other stick figures to fight alongside him. But there is one irrefutable thing that Henry can't contend with. It wouldn't matter if Henry stopped time, tried to mind control him, sealed him within a leaf, used a neurotoxin to cause brain death, melt his bones, turned two-dimensional, or even phase through the Second Coming's energy attacks. The Second Coming could actually prevent Henry from respawning. Not only is the Second Coming strong enough to fight a 4D construct, he could stop Henry's respawning by killing him so much that it destabilizes time. He could see Henry as corrupted data and cleanse him, and finally, he could destroy the respawn button altogether. Henry loses on every metric. Plus, with all of his equipment, a lot of them end up hurting or killing himself, while the Second Coming is a master fighter that wouldn't be outdone by someone so much slower or so much weaker than himself. Plus, if Henry kept resetting time after various deaths or failures, the Second Coming would have way more than enough time to figure out how to destroy the reset button. This is such a fun episode though, one of my most wanted even, but the debate is clear. Second Coming has this in the bag. March was a really good month for Death and Fan Battle Cast, I think. I know I shit on Death Battle a lot when it comes to their debates, but honestly, I find them still entertaining outside of these debates. Fan Battle Cast, I simp for them all the time. Sherm, Saul, Dark Lore Master, Wagonworks, Riddles, Polaris, Caucasian, all you guys, I will back you 100% every time. There wasn't a single matchup this month you guys talked about that I didn't like. But this does leave me a question I want to ask my viewers. Should I still cover the Death Battle casts? They haven't really been debating much. Like Raphael versus Bakugo, they only brought up that Raphael can turn into a dragon, and I honestly just don't know what to say about that. Maybe I can keep them in as a way to be like, hey, look at all these fun matchups, instead of, hey, look at these fun debates. And then I could just talk about the debates of Fan Battle Cast instead. I want to hear your feedback, so please tell me in the comments. Do you want me to keep covering Death Battle Cast the way I do, or do you want me to just stick to the Fan Battle Cast? The second thing I want to ask everyone, give me just any kind of criticism on how I make these videos. I truthfully want to get better. I want to get better at making videos. I want to get better at being entertaining. So if there's any spots I'm weak in that I'm not noticing, I want you guys to please tell me. Whether that be this video, my predictions, my reviews, anything. But until next time, I truthfully hope everyone enjoyed. Have a great day, and take care.